We have a lot of guilt in our lives, and that drives a lot of our action. Right? Guilt comes from either doing something or not doing something. There are two kinds of guilt. So, guilt of commission and guilt of omission. So you're underage and you've had a few drinks, and then when you're really nice and high, the first person you think about is your mom. You mustn't find out. And you feel that pang of guilt that you've done something wrong, that you've done something that's not acceptable. But what if it was completely all right in our society for everyone to have 10 drinks every evening? If that was the norm, then that child would not feel any guilt for having 10 drinks. Why is it that we feel the guilt? It's because of the culture we live in, and we want to belong to this culture. And there's a set of expected rules about the way you dress, about the way you talk, about the way you do things. We were making fun of my mother because she used the word Red Indians. I said, don't say that anymore, mommy. She says, no, what are they called then? She had no idea that, she knows that there's another name, but this was the name she grew up with, and it's not derogatory in any way. You go to India, they will still refer to Native Americans as Red Indians. We're the brown Indians or the black Indians, and they're the Red Indians. Just a color. It doesn't mean anything derogatory. In different cultures, different things are acceptable. Also, the guilt comes from duty. You're expected to do certain things in that particular role. So if you are the manager, you have a certain number of duties during the day. You have to work from such and such time to such and such time, and if you slip away at 4:30, you're looking over your shoulder 100% to see somebody's coming. Somebody's coming through the door. Anyone saw me? Nobody saw me. Oh my God, thank goodness I escaped, right? Because you've done something that's not acceptable. Who set those rules? The company did. So when we break rules that are assigned by society, you feel a lot of guilt. And a lot of it is connected to fear. Fear of what? Fear of being caught, fear of losing your job, fear of looking silly. All these things, guilt is a very complicated subject. So, I have written about a story in this book about a girl who has 3 deliberate abortions, right? One deliberate abortion, and then she miscarries. But then she can't conceive for a very long time. So what happens? She believes that it's divine retribution for having killed a child. And the guilt remains with her. And her husband keeps saying, I told you, you shouldn't have done this. And that doesn't help. And the entire feeling of guilt is become so deeply embedded into her psyche, she cannot conceive. She cannot. The minute she reaches a point of surrender, when she says, fine, I don't want children. I'm not going to have children, it's fine. And she sells all her old the baby clothes, the pram. The next thing she knows, she's pregnant. The guilt has gone, they've stopped talking about the baby because she doesn't want it anymore, right? But guilt is so strong, it can destroy relationships. Sometimes we feel guilt, although if we had a clear talk with the other person, we'd realize we have not really wronged that person in any way. We feel bad that you've hurt somebody, or you've said something, or you've done something to harm anyone. Why would you feel guilt? You'll only feel guilt if you have a conscience. And a little bit of guilt is good because it makes you do the right thing. Right? Otherwise, if you had no conscience and if you had no feelings of guilt, you'd do exactly as you pleased. And it wouldn't matter whether you, what the other person's reaction was or what society's reaction was. And that's what defines a sociopath. What do sociopaths do? They do everything. They have no feelings of guilt. They don't, whether they kill or they hurt or they rape or they commit any act of violence, they don't feel anything. Right? Guilt is an emotion that you're feeling, that I should have done something some other way. So then what do you do when you have that guilt? Most often, in order to get rid of the guilt, you get into a cycle of something else. Blame. You blame something or someone, and you feel that now I'm feeling okay. It's because this person didn't give me this in a timely fashion that I, stole the money. It's because I am poor that I steal from the store. It's because I have to, everybody does it. So I leave a little early from work. Everybody does it. You're blaming everybody for it. Makes you feel lighter. You know it's not right. But because everyone else does it, you put the blame on somebody. You put the blame. Everybody has to be blamed. Because you see your act, whatever you've done, as a mistake. Now, everybody commits mistakes. When you see life as a series of happenings, you stop assigning blame and you stop feeling the guilt. If you feel you've done something wrong to someone, or you've hurt someone by either your action or your act of, like I said, commission or omission, you did something or you didn't do something, then apologize once, sincerely, once, and let it go. You do not have to apologize for the same act again and again and again. You do not have to let the same guilt fester inside you like a wound. And I'm quite certain that each one of us has got something that we feel guilt, that comes up, that we feel guilty about. Days that, I wish I had not done that. Oh, I wish I had not said that. Things that we said by either by mistake, and we do a lot of things by mistake. It's not that we're in 100% control 100% of the time. We make mistakes, and you have to realize a mistake is a mistake. So when someone commits a mistake, your job is to just ignore it and take it for what it is, a mistake, and not point a finger and say, you made a mistake. Sometimes you need to point it out, sure. But point it out once. Don't let it continue to be a banter up and down. You made a mistake. No, it's not my fault. It's your fault. No, it's not your fault. It's mine. I mean, it goes back and forth, right? With a person, when you're trying to clear up a misunderstanding, they never accept it's their fault. And you never accept it's your fault. You're both banging heads, and it's never going to end. You just back off and say, whatever it is, a mistake is a mistake. It's not your fault, it's not my fault. If it is your fault, acknowledge it. Take responsibility for what you've done. and apologize. And apologizing doesn't mean just saying sorry. Some people, that word sorry won't even come to their mouth. It'll be like, But you shouldn't have done that immediately. It requires a great soul, honestly, to be able to apologize, to acknowledge that you've made a mistake. Not everybody does it. And if somebody does it, it is you must acknowledge that and forgive immediately. Blame and guilt are two of the biggest forces that guide our life. In a day, there are 100 times that these two things will come up. Every habit that you have, or every good habit and every bad habit, you're blaming or asking someone. My daughter tells me 100 times, Mom, you don't eat healthy. I just want you to eat healthy. And then she says, you're putting margarine, you're putting butter. And then I feel terribly guilty that I'm doing that. I'm putting mayonnaise on my bread or whatever. I feel, oh my God, this is terrible. And then I tell her, who are you to tell me? And she says, okay, I'm just trying to give you a healthy lifestyle. You don't want to listen to me. It's not about age. I can say what I want. I'm doing it for you. And so it goes on. And it ends up being this huge fight when we're not talking to each other for a whole day just because of mayonnaise. Right? Small things happen between husband and wife. I told you to pick up the milk. Right? But you told me when I was in doing the gardening and I didn't hear you. You should have told me when I was much more rested and relaxed. So, he feels he's listening to me. He's listening to me now. Yeah. Somehow, at least in my case, I can never find the correct moment to ask for anything. I don't know about you guys. At that moment, he's not rested or relaxed. My voice is not calm enough. It's always raised. Right? So do I carry that guilt? I'm like, if I had to carry that guilt, we would never be talking to each other. I'm like, okay, whatever. He's in one of these moods. I'll tell him 5 minutes later. If I remember, I remember. If I don't, I don't. But to carry that poison of guilt is literally, that's what it is. It's poison. It poisons your relationships. It poisons your state of mind. It poisons everything. You have to do one thing or the other. Stop the mayonnaise. Or eat the mayonnaise and be proud of it. One of the two, right? You can't eat the mayonnaise on the sly. When she's not looking, when my daughter's out of town, now I'm eating the mayonnaise. Because you will feel guilt. Say, oh my God, Karunya might be watching me. The consciousness is all connected. You never know who's watching, So that's the thing. We have to make a choice. We can't do this and that. A lot of the times we say things and live our life pleasing someone else. I don't want to hurt them. But you're harboring that resentment in your heart and feeling bad that you're going against your grain. Which is why, it is so important to get back to your source and be centered and be aware. Every moment of awareness brings out a different side of you. You learn so many different facets of your own character. What are you guilty about? And maybe this week, let's talk about guilt and blame, and then I'll discuss surrender next time. It's another topic that people don't understand. And guilt and blame lead you to, is the last stop on the road to surrender. You want to give it up, but don't know how. In the meantime, this is eating you up. The guilt is just ruining things. One of the people I spoke to brought up a very important concept or point about homosexuality and the guilt associated with that. This is when I don't know about how it was in America growing up, but when I grew up in the 60s and 70s, homosexuality was not something we even heard about. But not to say that there weren't homosexuals. There have been homosexuals from, I don't know from when. Now when you look at Mughal history and all of that, you see a lot of instances people are talking about. It's always been there. It's something that they were ashamed of and that they hid. And many, for generations, Indian men have been having regular marriages and having this urge on the side and the guilt that comes with that. It is painful now when as through different eyes, I see all of this, because I see that the divine exists whether you have it's all about choice, whether you make a choice of a straight partner or a homosexual partner, whatever partner you make, it's the same divinity, right? It's the same beauty inside you. But they live with this shame of not being able to share it with their parents, not being able to share it with their if they did it with their co-workers, they suffer in the workplace. People call them names, people beat them up. There's so much of hate and so much of all of this. Things are changing. But when I talk to this particular person that I've talked about the guilt in the book, it's the shame that the family faces. What will people say? What will people say to me? I mean, in my immediate circle, I have not met any of my friends who've had to deal with that for their children. But I feel that right now there's perhaps a lot more acceptance. I don't know, what do you think? I think that definitely. And, much less of a stigma.
Yeah.
So when he went and he asked, Guruji, he was also a devotee of Sri Ravi Shankar. He asked him, what do you think about homosexuality? It was the first question, because if he had to follow a guru, he had to know what his thoughts were. So Shri said, do you like pumpkin? So he was like, what? Do you like pumpkin? He says, yes, I like pumpkin. He says, do you like to eat pumpkin at every meal, every day? So he's like, no. He says, look around you. There are so many varieties of fruits and vegetables. The divine loves diversity. That was his answer. Divinity is there irrespective. That is one area that you see a lot of guilt. The second area is with crime. The entire prison system all over the world is filled with a lot of people. 90% of the people that are in there are there because they committed one random act of violence. They face a lot of guilt and don't know how to deal with it because they are not in touch with their own consciousness, with their source. When you teach them, if we had the opportunity to teach them to get in touch with their consciousness, that guilt would convert into acceptance, and then it would lead to surrender. But they live with that guilt, and it gets compounded. They never escape from that crime that they committed. It's the same with soldiers. What is PTSD? It is pure guilt. The sight of that child as you shot him, or as somebody, that is PTSD. The guilt of killing, whatever you may say, whether you're killing for your country or you're killing for your needs, an impact on you unless you're a sociopath and you enjoy killing. That's a different thing altogether. But if you are a regular human being, anybody who kills, it will have an effect. Some can release it through their spiritual, whatever spiritual path, prayer and religion or whatever they path, and some just cannot come to terms with it. That's what they call PTSD. And today, almost 75% of San Francisco's jails have got returned veterans. I saw a show on one of these not NPR, Channel 2 or one of those, said that so many veterans are killing because they perceive the danger and it triggers the violence. And they have no idea what happened. Because they have that guilt which they repress. It is embedded so deeply into their psyche. They have no idea what it is, how to deal with it, how to negotiate it, how to overcome it. No. So when that similar situation presents itself, the trigger is violence. And that gets them into a terrible, terrible situation. It's a growing problem, and that is an area that people need to address, and make people...
They have survivor's guilt also.
Survivor's guilt too.
When their friends died and they're like, why am I still here?
Exactly. Exactly. And that happened with the Holocaust too. That was an entire generation that really felt the guilt when they were the lone survivors in a family of 20 and 30 years. Survivor's guilt is a huge one. Guilt is a huge one. We may not realize that we have small little pockets of guilt every single day. Every single day. And it is wrong to desensitize yourself to the guilt. Because the more you desensitize, the more acts of crime you commit. So it's okay to drink, I remember my daughter, Lavanya, she used to like juice, and I never allowed her. I let her have one pouch at a time. But she would figure out where the pouches are, and then she would hide it under the sofa where we could see it, as a child. And no guilt whatsoever. She'd look at it and say, I don't know how it got there. She had no idea, because she's just said, now I enjoy this and I'm going to have it. Whatever. So you keep committing that same error, even though you know it's bad for you. Or it's bad. Whatever. This is a small instance. It's just juice. But, that's what happens. You steal one lipstick. The next time you say, oh, I didn't notice. Nobody said anything. Then you steal a lipstick and a shampoo. And soon, pretty much, you've got your pocket stuffed with a lot of stuff. It just continues. It's good to be aware of your guilt and to act on your guilt, because it keeps you from committing those crimes. So, what I would ask you for this week is again to keep a journal. Journals are great. To keep a little book. Whenever you become aware of things that you feel guilt about. Because that causes a lot of stress. Stress is really that gap that is caused between what you should be doing and what you actually do. What's the reality? In that gap is the stress. So, when someone else is dictating what you should do and you do something else, then you fill that gap with guilt. And that's what makes you stressed out. So become aware of all the things in the day. And we'll talk about it next time. We should really follow up on this. So keep something. Keep a little journal, a piece of paper, something, or write it on your phone, on your notes. Just, small words that help you to remind you of the guilt. And then, like the mayonnaise example, take a hard decision. Take a hard decision. Go with the mayonnaise or give it up.